Hey now.
Oh yeah, look at my life out here on the road. Oh yeah, look at my life. Hey now, yeah. Oh yeah, look at my life out here on the road.
Hey now.
And a big hey now. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Scott Fox After 9. Second last pod before vacation. And today, I bring in the great Anna Almeida. How are you, Anna?
I'm good. How are you feeling, this being your second last pod for a little bit?
Can I be honest?
Please.
I'm tired.
Are you?
I'm really tired. I haven't taken a break since I started the pod way back at the beginning of January. I think January 6th was my first episode. And since then, I haven't taken a break. So I'm looking forward to it. I need a little bit of time. So I'm going to do today. I'm going to do tomorrow, next week, that first week of July. A lot of people are on vacation. I'm taking a vacation too.
Well deserved.
Thank you. You've been doing a great job here on the pod, Anna. I got some really good feedback on yesterday's episode when we were talking about air conditioning in schools.
Yeah.
And there was another topic too. It'll come to me. So I learned a couple of things. Number one, I've learned from several people that are in government procurement that this air conditioner in the school situation is a debacle.
Okay.
It is not as easy as I may have led on yesterday to fix the issue, but there are solutions available. So 2 red flags came up. If you didn't hear yesterday's episode, I thought it was great. We were talking about good stuff that affects a lot of people.
Yeah.
No air conditioning in schools. And I don't think there's many people that would want to go to work in an unair conditioned office in the temperatures we had earlier this week.
Absolutely not. Oh my gosh. To be in an oven while trying to learn is just not appealing.
But I did it. When I went to school, we never had air conditioning.
But we didn't have the options like we have today. There are solutions. Then it was just the norm. We didn't know any better.
You just opened a window.
You did. Open the door. That was it. Off you go. But now you can, help them and give them that relief that they need.
So I've learned that the air conditioner that I proposed probably wouldn't be practical because they have to vent it. In other words, there has to be a place for the exhaust to go. So they would have to either crack a window or drill a hole to the outside. I don't see that as an insurmountable thing, but several have messaged me to say, you can't use the portable ones because you got to drill a hole to vent it. So be that as it may, somebody else also did the BTU conversion. I pointed out yesterday we had a very cheap 1,000 BTU air conditioner.
On Amazon, gets delivered today.
I think the government of Ontario could splurge on a Prime membership. It could be delivered next day. Well, somebody explained to me after doing the BTU conversion that 1,000 BTUs isn't enough for 30 pupils and a teacher. I don't care. Listen, I appreciate you doing the math for me, but it doesn't matter. The point of yesterday is that there are solutions available if we want to find it. It just seems like nobody really cares about solving the problem.
And I got to say, I've been to many classrooms in my day, and they all have windows that you can open and vent. There you go. You don't have to drill a hole in a wall to get that relief that people need. Just saying.
I see where they're coming from.
I do too, but truthfully, classrooms, you tend to have windows. I'm just going to put that out there. And to your point too, yes, maybe it doesn't cool off every child in the way that you would like, but at least it's a little bit of a relief. It's better than not having something.
The other one was the $400 million parking garage.
Oh, that was a hot topic.
The Garage Mahal.
I like that. Yeah. There you go.
Actually, you know what? Full credit to Robert Benzies. I'll give him credit for that when he came up with that. The Garage Mahal.
I like that though. Yeah.
So I heard from a number of people in government procurement, and they all agree that is a staggering, ridiculous number, $400 million to build a parking garage. Now, I did have a dispute with somebody over the water table and whether or not it had to be on the north side or south side of Lakeshore, and a lot of distractions in this conversation. I get it. Again, not quite as easy as I may have simplified it yesterday. However, it doesn't need to cost $400 million. I still think it should be built. I agree with building it. I just agree with building it for the best possible price. And it doesn't seem like we got the best possible price there.
Even if you don't know construction, if you hear parking lot, money spent, $400 million, you know that is too much. I don't care if you follow what's happening. You just know that that is a hefty price. You would hope that, they'd build what are those in New York City? The elevators for your cars. Like, make it fancy for $400 million if you're going to spend that.
Well, there was some that suggested maybe it would cost that much if we had an electric vehicle charging station in every spot.
Wow.
Because then they would have to put in more power and things like that. I certainly hope that's not the case.
Yeah, that's unnecessary.
This mandate that we're going to have to all have EV vehicles by 2035, I don't think it's ever going to happen. Sooner or later, the Liberals are going to lose an election, and a lot of the damage that they've done is going to get undone. And I think that that'll be one of the first things to go, is this mandate for 100% electric vehicles by 2035. That's the only scenario where we might need to do that. I also don't think we have to put charging stations everywhere.
No.
And if we are putting charging stations everywhere, we should be charging good money for that. Hydro's not free. Taxpayers should not be paying to charge up somebody else's vehicle. You wanted an EV, you're saving a ton of money as is on gas, you at least got to pay for the charge.
Preach. I love that. It's true.
Now, let's get to today. We're going to blow through a bunch of topics, and then for part 2, I'm going to spend a little time, solo Scott, breaking down Prime Minister Carney's speech yesterday as he was wrapping up the NATO summit, because he committed us to spending a lot of money.
A lot.
About $150 billion a year. And one of the interesting things that came out of what Prime Minister Carney had to say yesterday is something I didn't expect to hear from him. A little hint towards austerity. In order to maintain that kind of spending on our military, other things are going to have to go. Which means either he's going to raise our taxes, which a lot of people think he will. I mean, you can't spend this much money and print all the money. You got to raise taxes.
You have to do something.
So taxes are likely going to go up. And he also hinted that some of the programs that Canadians like may have to be cut.
Wow.
Oh, I don't remember anybody voting for that.
My gosh.
Sorry, conservatives were voting for that.
Damn.
I don't remember any of the people who supported Prime Minister Carney supporting possible cuts. And no, he hasn't said yet what the cuts will be. These aren't going to happen imminently. But as we get towards our NATO spending target, and by the way, right now we're less than 2, he committed us to 5.
Yeah.
So it's going to go from 60 billion to 150 billion real quick.
Yeah, we don't even have that kind of money.
No, we don't.
We do not.
So it makes sense that we would have to cut programs. It's just, in a Carney government, I'm curious to see which programs they think are dispensable.
I agree.
Now, will they cancel that very wasteful and unnecessary gun buyback program? Not likely.
No.
Will they cancel the $10 a day childcare? Maybe. Maybe. Will they cancel the dental care? Probably.
Yeah, get it in now.
But will they cancel the CBC's funding? No, they won't do that.
I love it. We are thinking the exact same. And you know what? I feel like Prime Minister Carney, we got love bombed by him and his party, told us everything we wanted to hear. We committed to them. And now the truth is starting to come out and but we've committed. We have to stay and ride this out, even if we're unhappy.
It's like you got catfished and you can't leave the date.
Honest to God.
You can't just dump them and move on.
But you have to tell your friends, I swear, guys, he's really nice, though. Like, if you just got to know him, he's nice. Just ignore all the red flags that are being presented to you right now. I'm telling you, you'll love him. He just has to grow on you.
Everybody's ignoring red flags.
Right?
There are so many red flags in front of us right now, and the vast majority are choosing not to see them.
Yeah.
So I'm going to put a little spotlight on some of them. And again, it won't be from me. It'll be from the Prime Minister himself. You can hear his speech from yesterday. It's an interesting one. Before we get to that, though, I do want to play something that came up last night. It was the NBA draft, and the Raptors drafted 9th. So congratulations to the newest Toronto Raptor. This should be a huge day for Colin Murray Boyles from the University of South Carolina. This is the guy that after he got drafted, the camera panned to him, you could see him shake his head and go, fuck.
I know. I couldn't believe it.
What a terrible look.
What a terrible look right off the bat of course the camera's going to come to you. And I mean, now he's a Raptor. He's going to go straight into PR camp because that was a red, big no. And it was obvious. He's trying to do damage control now and say, hey, I was just caught off guard and thinking, WTF, I'm just excited to be chosen.
He did do an interview with NBA TV, and I apologize, I don't know this interviewer's name, but I'm going to play about a minute and a half of him trying to do damage control last night, because clearly somebody said something to him. It may even have been Masai Ujiri himself.
Yeah.
May have said to him, that thing that you just did when we called your name, you better walk out on that interview stage and fix it.
Yeah, love us.
Listen to this.
Colin, newest member of the Toronto Raptors, how are you soaking in this dream come true moment?
I don't even know. This is crazy. Being with this organization means so much. They're a winning organization. I just want to make everybody better around me. So that's what I'm going to do.
I know that in these moments there's always so much going on. Want to give you a chance to explain your reaction in the moment.
Oh, WTF for sure. WTF all the way till my name got called. Man, it was crazy.
First off, do you believe he meant WTF? Because it looked like he meant F.
I do not believe it. He can try to spin it which way, but nah, my friend.
You can tell even the interviewer was aware of what happened because that's why she said, would you like an opportunity to clarify your reaction? And now he's walking it all back. And I don't think he's a bad guy. No. I don't think he hates Toronto. I just think he thought he would be drafted to another team, maybe someone closer to home or a bigger American market. He's what, 20?
He's only 20 years old. He's still learning as he goes, being in the spotlight. But at the same time, you're playing, basketball for your college or university. You haven't a clue when you're doing press.
Yeah. Here's the rest of that. This will be about another 40 seconds or so.
But, geez, I almost shed a tear. But I try to keep my composure. But, it's surreal. Like, I dreamed of this when I was a kid. Like, you never know you're going to be there till you're there, for real. So it's like, it's crazy.
Beautiful. Okay, you got your passport ready?
Oh, yeah, my passport in my book bag.
What's the first thing you got to do when you get to Toronto? What's the goal?
First thing I got to do when I get to Toronto is post on my Instagram story, put a Drake song in there, and I'm going to add him.
Which song? We know what we're doing?
Nah, don't know yet. I'm going to figure it out.
He doesn't know because he wasn't planning coming to Toronto.
No. Well, and for those who don't know, when it comes to a draft, sometimes the team will phone the player and say, just so you know, we're drafting you.
Yeah.
And they give him a little pep talk like, welcome to our team. You're going to be a Raptor. This is a team that has a recent NBA championship. We've got Scotty Barnes, one of the best young players in the league, and Grady Dick, and the list goes on, and you're going to be with them. Really pump them up. It seems like this kid was just as shocked as everybody else when the Raptors drafted him. And I think that's kind of Masai Ujiri's MO.
Yeah.
I think he likes to do that, but in this case, from a PR standpoint, it backfired horribly.
Horribly. And I even find that he's still having a hard time convincing himself that it was a tough WTF moment in that interview. I got to be honest with you. And he's trying every which way. Like, I need to get in there now. I've ruined things. Toronto fans are not like other fans. We remember and we hold. We hold grudges. We hold happiness. We let you know how we feel. So trying to get in now there with Drake and letting everybody know I'm coming to the 6. I mean, nice damage control, but I don't believe it.
Some people think he's going to get booed.
I could see that, especially after that. I'm sure his mother probably slapped him upside the head and was like, boy, I didn't teach you to behave like that in front of people.
Well, it's raw. It's emotion. I get it. And there's a lot of people who don't want to play in Toronto. And I know it's not a patriotic thing to say this, but let's be honest. The dollars, the taxes are insane. It's not the same size media market or the same media as you would have even just on the other side of the border playing for the Knicks or something like that.
People love you and support you, and we show up. Even when it's cold, there's blizzards. We're out there, and we are committed to the team.
Yeah. But I mean, dollars and cents, he would be a lot better off financially if he ended up playing in like a Florida or something like that where there's no state tax. So either way, he's ours now. We own his rights. We can sell him. We can trade him. We can ditch him. We can do whatever we want. It's up to him now to make himself ingratiated to the fans of Toronto. And if he doesn't want to do that, he might not end up playing basketball at all.
Well, and the other thing is now everybody's talking about him. So he was pretty much relatively unknown, to fans of the team. I follow the Raptors, but not closely, and I knew about what had happened. So I'm saying people are talking about him, and I think, coming to a team like ours, you'll get probably more playing time than if you were to go to a Knicks or, a more well-known, supported team, let's say.
A new report has found asking rent for 2-bedroom units in Toronto and the Toronto area has been going up and down over the past handful of years. StatsCan says the average asking rent price in Toronto for the first quarter of this year, $2,690 a month. Now that's compared to $2,850 a year ago. It's actually gone down. But I think most would agree $2,690 a month for rent is insane.
It is insane, but having been a renter myself with a 2-bedroom apartment, if you are in Toronto for $2,600, take it before it goes up.
But how gross is that?
It's so gross.
That's a deal.
I know. Isn't that wild? My apartment was 2-bedroom. I got in when it was low, so I got locked in that grandfather price. But the people next door to me, $2,300. $2,300. No AC. It had some amenities in terms of washer dryer, but that was it. We had no backyard, no balcony. It's wild. $2,600. I mean, come on, make it livable for people so we can get ahead.
Hold on, where were you when you were paying?
I was in Halifax.
Oh, so that was not Toronto.
No, but that's what I mean. 23 in Halifax compared to 26. Like, take it. Take it, because I feel like it's just going to go up for a 2-bedroom.
They say elsewhere, asking rent for 2 bedrooms in Ottawa rose to $2,490 a month in the first quarter.
Wow.
It was $2,290 a year ago.
It's growing in other markets, yet Toronto, I guess there's so many vacant spots now. So there you have it.
Toronto is becoming unlivable. Anna, I live on the edge of that city, and I'm so glad I'm on the Burlington side and not the Toronto side, because it is gross what's going on in Toronto. Not only is it basically a lawless city with crime so bad. Yeah. I saw a video yesterday of some unhoused gentleman riding the streetcar, taking a bath on the streetcar, actually lathering up while he was taking a streetcar.
Wow.
Like, that sort of stuff isn't supposed to happen. Random stabbings, random shootings. It's nuts.
Every day there's something new like that, Scott. You're right.
And then you add in how much it costs to live there. I don't know why anybody does it. I'll be honest with you. I get that it's the biggest city in the country. I get that if you live in Toronto, you're probably proud of the fact that you live in Toronto. But why are you doing that to yourself? Is it just for the convenience of being in a major city? Is that it? Because you could live so much cheaper just outside of Toronto. And I'm not sure why more people aren't doing that.
Because it's the status thing. I do have friends who live out there, and that's one of the first things they'll tell you. Oh, no, I live in Toronto. Like, they'll be offended. Oh, no, I don't live in Cambridge. I live in Toronto, right downtown Toronto. I don't need a car. I walk everywhere. I got the train. But yeah, you're paying for the price of being there, and there is a lot of crime, and it can be pretty scary as well when you got to constantly look over your back.
I don't even go to Toronto anymore. I don't, unless I have to for something. I mean, I've cut concerts out of my list. I don't go to the restaurants in Toronto. I don't do any of that stuff anymore, because to me, it seems dangerous.
You're right. I just went to a concert recently, and it was my first time on the train, and I was watching my back the entire time. And
you have to.
It's just the state of the world that we're in, and the constant crime, and people just don't care anymore, because where is the law? They do something, they're out on probation, or I don't know, people feel like they can get away with so much these days, and I'm just, I fear for a lot of things, which it used to be fun, and now it's just not the thing I want to enjoy. No. There's
so many other places to go. And again, I'm not trying to crap on Toronto. I'm just calling a spade a spade. Yeah. And frankly, it just seems like Toronto did it to itself. This was a very predictable thing. When you start releasing criminals and no consequences for crime, and when you get such a bad economy, we know crime thrives when the economy is bad. It's the perfect storm. You embolden protesters to shut down intersections. Like, who didn't see this coming?
That's the thing. Did you have your head in the sand, or is it still under? Because open your eyes. You have to see what's going on in the world right now. We need structure. We need money. Money, employs people. People need to work. There's just so much uncertainty, and people are just making rules as they go, and, they believe that they're right. In fact, you're seeing that. That's the crime. Or, oh, they were on probation and they hurt somebody else again. Oh, it was another slap on the wrist, this and that. It's unsafe. It's unnecessary. Where's our government?
They don't care.
I know.
Like, even the government of Toronto doesn't care. That's who controls the police force. And Olivia Chow doesn't seem to have any concerns whatsoever. She's not doing anything about this. She's much more focused on defending herself for closing pools on a hot day.
Well, and then they attack the premier, and it's like, okay, you two should just be working together, not the back and forth spats. And then it's getting lost in translation what you're trying to fight for, because I'm annoyed at your stupidity. Like,
all of them.
Right? Just get it done. Get what we need done. You'll be liked if you get things done.
We were talking about rent a second ago, and this is pretty much the opposite of it. It's a great article in the New York Post. It's about boomerangers. And I wasn't familiar with that term until I read this article, but I'm certainly glad I did.
Yes.
A boomeranger, for those who don't know, is someone who has grown up, they've become an adult, they've moved out on their own, and then through whatever set of circumstances had to move back in with their parents. During the election, we talked a lot about 30-somethings living in their parents' basement. Mm-hmm. I mean, you're that person, except you're living upstairs and your parents live in the basement.
Yeah, I moved my parents to the basement. They're my kids. I'm just kidding.
So we've got a lot of these boomerangers now, and as it turns out, parents don't think they're doing a very good job at budgeting. I don't want anyone to feel attacked here because we're all in different circumstances, different ages and stages. So I'm just going to tell you what the article says specifically about people between 18 and 35 who have boomeranged home. Number one, parents do not give very good scores to their own kids that have boomeranged when it comes to budgeting. Of those who have people who have moved back into their home, 46%. Only 46% got top marks from their parents for their budgeting skills. It's 63% for people who are still living on their own.
Ooh, it's less than half. And exactly to your point, we don't know the circumstances as to why they had to move back. But
it's usually job loss or divorce.
Yeah.
Divorce is a big one. Job loss is the other.
And sometimes you can't budget well. And sometimes circumstances like there are now with rent being $2,600 for a place to live is outrageous. However, if you're going to move back in, you need to have a plan in place, and budgeting comes in. That's the biggest factor. You know, you got to make your monthly plan. What are you saving?
The psychologist who did this study with the New York Post has a couple of different strategies and theories about this.
Good.
Number one, she says part of the problem that there's a perception that boomerangers are not very good at budgeting is because it's such a drastic change. They say the perception is that rent is free. You don't need to pay rent. You live with your parents. And when you grew up living in your parents' house, it was always free. And there's some people who feel that if they go back there as an adult, it will remain free. But not everybody is in that situation.
No.
But if you've gone from paying a mortgage or rent to living in your parents' basement, not ideal, you may feel like you have a lot of extra money in your pocket. Groceries mysteriously just appear in your fridge. You don't have to pay a bill for your Wi-Fi anymore. All these things where you feel like you've got more money than you actually do. They say, in other words, it might be financially necessary to live rent-free at home, and the lack of real-world expenses means budgeting can easily be ignored.
I could see that because all of a sudden you have all this extra money that you did not have when you were struggling out in the real world. But you should not just presume that your parents are going to allow you to live at their home for free, the home that they worked very hard to achieve. And they were hoping you would do so too. But with the current climate, it obviously is difficult. But that's the thing. I moved back in. I'm a boomerang. Hello. Yes, that's me. I came back in. But I came back in with a plan. I just didn't move in. I always intended on taking care of my parents as they age. I pay the bills. I don't live there for free as much as they would want me to. And it's good that you can, because then you can save for a down payment. But you shouldn't think of it as the free ride that it once was. You're not a kid anymore.
Okay, so you want to give out a harsh dose of reality for these people.
Amen.
All right, well then hold that thought.
Because I am a boomerang.
Okay, relax. Just hold on a minute.
Okay.
Let me get through some of the other stats.
Please, and I'll let you know.
Parents often pick up extra grocery costs. They cover the higher utility bills. Yes, there is a cost to you taking a shower every day and running the dishwasher for more dishes, cooking more food. They say they also shoulder the emotional burden of trying to help, sometimes at the expense of their own financial security. Nearly half of parents who pay for their adult children's expenses say they have sacrificed their own financial stability to do so. 40% also say they feel pressured to help even when it stretches their personal budget too thin.
Yes, and do you want that guilt on your shoulders knowing that your parents are in a worse position because you moved in? It'd be different if it was a temporary thing or you had a plan in place. I keep saying about this plan, but it's so important. What's the goal here? What is the goal of moving back in? You know, is it just to stay? Or are you staying because you want to save? Or are you staying and this is going to be the new reality and then you meet in the middle with expectations? There has to be a plan. I don't want to date a guy who's like, I just live at home for free for nothing. Oh, well, isn't that nice? I'm not living with you after. I'm not going to take care of you like you've been taken care of. You need to know what the real world is all about.
That's really unreasonable. It's almost a little offensive. Let me tell you why.
Okay, please tell me.
There's many, many people that have ended up living back with their parents for a wide variety of reasons. Like I said, divorce, loss of a job, things like that. And you know what? Maybe they're not necessarily in a position to be able to pay rent or help at the moment.
That's fine with me.
But if they are on a path to getting back out on their own, that's supposed to be the point of living with your parents. It's not a permanent thing. As long as they're making steps towards that, I don't think, and based on this, the vast majority of parents don't have a problem helping out their kid. It's when it goes on too long or if there is no desire to leave. That's where the problem comes in.
And that's where my issue is. I moved into my parents' home. I didn't have a job. I left a career to start over and be at home. So I was that person being out and saying, hey, I'm not working right now. I am living at my parents' place. I knew that was going to be temporary. I had a plan. I'm not just trying to freeload and, get the free groceries, do all those different things. I knew that eventually I was going to work and the money that I was going to make were going to pay for the bills that I was also accumulating. You just don't live with somebody and then use their water. And how would you feel if that were you? If you had your child come in and do all those things to you after, and especially in the state of the economy right now where things are expensive. You got to work as a team. So that's where I don't want you to be offended, but I want you to have a clue.
Okay,
the world is tough.
Listen, whether you do or do not live there, your parents will still have to pay property taxes on this home. They're clearly empty nesters if you can just move back in.
Know.
So if these empty nesters want to still live in that big house, well, they're probably going to be paying about $7,000 a year in property taxes.
You're right.
Whether you live there or not, they're still going to pay a hydro bill. They're still going to pay a water bill. Should you be joining in those expenses or should you just be covering what you're using? If the water bill is typically $100 and it goes up to $150, is it $75 each, or do you just give them the $50 difference?
Oh, I pay my difference as well. And I've even spoke to them. I'm like, because to what we were talking about when I moved in, they didn't want me to think about, they didn't want me to stress. They just wanted me to work on my mental health and get a job. It will come. And I said, no, when I start working, I'm going to pay the bills. So what's important to you? What will make you feel fulfilled as a parent that you want to pay? And we talked about it. So yeah, I pay water, I pay the internet, I pay the phones. And so I think it's important to calculate and know what you're going to contribute. I think you'll feel better too, knowing that you're doing your part. Personally.
Sure. It's also tough to move back in. I don't know if you felt this way because it was planned, but for a lot of people, when they do end up back with their parents, this is just as
you can
could be
it.
demoralizing.
Yeah.
It could be demeaning. It could be a feeling of failure. And it's not necessarily, you can't help the fact that your marriage ended or that you lost your job. But it is a feeling of failure for a lot of people. And I don't think the vast majority of parents want to pile on to that feeling. That's why, like your great parents, they tried to make it as easy as possible on you. But what the experts here are saying is, while you're trying to help your kids, and that's great, don't put yourself and your financial security at risk. And you have to, I'll give you some of the tips. Avoid stalled progress through clear expectations and regular money conversations. If you're living with your parents as a boomeranger, is it okay for your parents to sit you down and say, how much money do you have? How much are you saving every month? How much should you be contributing to bills? Where are you looking for new houses? What are you doing to try and find a plan? Can your parents go full-blown parent mode again to try and get you back on your feet like they did when they got you out the first time?
I think
Or is it different because you're an adult?
I could see how it would be very very tricky, but at the same time, it's important to have those conversations and get your, it puts you in check, to be honest, and makes you think, okay, I really do need to get my stuff figured out. I really need to have this plan. I really should put money away here. And then, it makes those conversations a little bit easier. If you're feeling attacked, there's a reason why you're feeling attacked.
Because you felt that way anyway.
Yeah, exactly. So
Sure.
that's the thing. You have to really take a step back and see the grand scheme and the grand picture. What is the goal of me being here and where do I want to go, and then go from there.
So this expert says parents should think more like coaches, not banks. I can see that, but it also kind of depends on how old and the age and stage of the person that is boomeranged, that is coming back. If you're in your 40s and you have to move back in with your parents, I don't know what that feels like, but I imagine that your first goal is to get out of your parents' house. And if they can help you and coach you along the way, great, but there still has to be boundaries.
Oh, absolutely. And there needs to be boundaries. Listen, I turned 39 2 days or 3 days after I moved back into my parents'. I felt like a failure, even though it was my choice to leave what I had been doing. It's not easy being on your own, living a life, making all your decisions, having nobody to answer to moving back into your parents' home. Although you are an adult, parents instinctually still want a parent. And even though we're on different floors, I have my own entrance, this and that, they're still your parent and still want to know, where are you going? That's a hard one. I'm going out. Where? Don't worry about it. So then when they then approach you to talk about money, you're already on edge a little bit, depending on the relationship you have with them. But no, I'm trying to still think, okay, it's coming from a good place. They want to see you succeed. They're your parents. They raised you. They want to see that all the effort they put into you has and will be beneficial. So
this expert recommends coming up with a plan that everyone agrees to for how the kid is going to, well, it's an adult, really, how the adult is going to contribute financially, even if it's a small contribution, and help train kids to get in the habit of budgeting, because they say the budgeting goes out the window. I'm acutely aware of this because I'm someone who pays attention to interest rates and inflation and the economic conditions we're in. And one of the reasons that the interest rates are so disconnected from reality is because of boomerangers. Let me tell you what I mean by that.
Please.
The Bank of Canada looks out at the middle class, and they know there's people struggling. They know there's a reason that so many for sale signs are popping up in everybody's neighborhoods. People are stretched. They are broke. And it's all because of the Bank of Canada and the government of Canada printing too much money, too much inflation. That caused the interest rates to go up. That was massive. It was a huge hit for so many people.
Yeah.
But then you've got the boomerangers who no longer have a mortgage to pay, no longer have rent to pay, and their expenses are much less. Some consider that disposable income. Others would think, okay, what I'm not spending that I used to spend on my mortgage, I'm going to put that away every month so that when I'm ready to buy something new or I'm ready to go out on my own again, I've got that good base of money. Others don't see it that way. They think, well, I don't have to pay rent, so I've got disposable income. So when people are out there buying electronics, taking expensive vacations, doing all of these things, more likely they're one of these boomerangers because they do have a home that's secure.
Yeah.
And they've got disposable income because they're not paying for it. They don't have the same problems as people who do have a mortgage or a rent payment to make. And when they have that much disposable income, they're the same age as you and I. The Bank of Canada sees all this money getting spent on vacations and Amazon orders and Uber Eats and Skip the Dishes and all this sort of stuff. And it seems to them like everything is fine. It's a distorted view of the economy and the middle class right now because some, they do have all kinds of disposable income, but they're not in the ideal scenario because they're living with their parents.
Oh my gosh, Scott, I never looked at it like that. And you're absolutely right. Of course, that makes so much sense. It's so true. It is skewing all the numbers. I still live as if I'm still paying rent because I'm still paying bills. Maybe not to the amount that I was paying before, but I'm still frugal and putting money aside because I live with my parents in their home now, but eventually I want to have my own home and my parents live with me. Do you get what I mean? And have that nice suite for the parents so I can take care of them. That's been the goal. But again, to their point, they say have a plan, have those conversations.
But they're awkward, right?
Hell yeah, they're awkward.
How do you sit down your 35-year-old kid and say, I need to know how much money you're saving. I want to know where your income comes from. And you're going to put away 80% of it. And you can keep 20% for spending money. Like they would talk to you when you were a teenager, when you got your first job.
And that's the thing. If you feel uncomfortable, why are you feeling uncomfortable? If you have a plan in place and, you know, it's going to be easy to talk to them, maybe that's when you think, okay, I should talk to a financial advisor or ask somebody what their, you know, thoughts on how I should approach the next steps of my life, you know, or maybe ask your parents for advice. I mean, they still have the home, and just keep in mind, you being there should not be adding more stress to their life because, yeah, you may have a nice home right now, but if you take advantage, that home might not be there if they can't afford to pay the property taxes and all the other stuff that comes along with it.
I'm worried about seniors.
Yes.
I'm really worried about them. And we're talking about that demo. You know, it's all well and good if they do have a kid that moved back home because there is a little bit of extra monthly income coming in. That's some good support. But for those who don't have the extra income coming in, for those who are supporting their adult kids and trying to maintain the expense of a household. I mean, property taxes are going up every year.
Yeah.
Hydro's going up every time. Gas is going up constantly. It's crazy that people on fixed incomes are expected to not only maintain the house with rising expenses, but then to also support an adult kid. And not that it's the fault of the kid. However you ended up back at home it's
your story.
It's your story, and it's part of
your journey
that's being written as we speak.
Yep.
But I think the goal has got to be get out as quickly as possible, unless you've just agreed. I'm going to live here permanently, and I'm going to contribute to the expenses, and I'm going to make sure that you don't have to spend money out of pocket every month. You own your home, good. You don't have to pay the bills. I'll pay the bills.
Yeah.
That's an arrangement that some might come up with.
Yeah, like you want to help your parents out like they helped you, and, you know, maybe they took you in to help you out at first, and then you finally get back on your feet. Maybe that's your opportunity to give them back, or, you know, just even seeing you flourish again, getting out, that's a win for them. But we have to make sure that those seniors are too taken care of. Just because you're their kid is not the obligation. They gave you the 18 years. It was up to you now to figure out what you were going to do next.
Can I tell you, I love this conversation that we're having. This was going to be about 5 minutes of the pod, and it's turned into much more.
But it's good.
And that's okay. I'm just going to ask you a couple more questions. Then I'm going to go solo, Scott, and talk about the Prime Minister, because we're already almost at time for this episode.
I love talking to you.
Thank you. I feel the same way about you.
Thank you.
Can parents say no?
Yes.
They can.
My parents say no.
No, I mean, you're about to boomerang. You've lost your job. Your marriage is ending. Whatever it is, and you have to go and say, "Mom, Dad, Mom, Dad, whatever it is."
Yeah.
I need to move back in because I lost my job or because I'm separating from whomever. Can I move back in? Can parents say, "No, you're an adult. Figure it out"?
They can say it. And some do.
Do they?
Some do.
Really?
I know people, some do, and they end up living with a friend and in the friend's basement. However, it's not a common thing because it's still your child. At the end of the day, yes, they're adults, but when you look at them, you're a parent, Scott, you probably still see your little girl and your little boy who need help. And then you're like, I'm here.
I miss them so much,
right?
Anna.
See,
I miss them.
I
Like
know.
if they came to me right now and said, "Dad, it's just not working. Can I move in with you?" Absolutely. I'll pack the suitcases.
I'm telling you.
Get in here.
You still want to feel like a parent. And that's the thing, you know, you're a parent forever. We're the kid and we're supposed to go off on our own, but
it is also the job of the parents to prepare that bird to fly.
this is true, but sometimes some birds take a lot of detours until they figure it out. They do have different jobs. They marry the wrong person or whatever the case may be, and they need a little extra support. And it's nice that you can lend that support.
Okay. We don't always come solo. Is it okay for mom and dad to say, "Yeah, sure, you can move back in, but not your dog"? I don't want a dog.
Holy, yeah. Can I tell you, that was a big one because my mom is not an animal person. And
And you have a dog.
I have a huge dog. He's like 120 pounds. He's not a small dog, and she's scared of big dogs.
Oh, no.
And although we're on different floors, when I'm at work, he goes down. He's with my dad.
Well, your dad, he's also a big suck for your dad.
Huge suck. So like my dad is taking him on. And so having him on the couch, my parents are Portuguese. Like it's like my big fat Greek wedding where you have plastic on the couches and plastic on the tables. Do you know what I mean? Like animals do not go on beds. And so it was a huge adjustment for my mother. So I knew that was going to be a big ask. Even though I was upstairs, it's still technically their home. Their name is on the property. But they allowed it. And I honestly, I would live with a friend if they said my dog couldn't come.
Really? You'd actually say, thanks for the offer, but we're a package and that's it.
Of course, because my dog is my family and I don't have kids. So to me, and to each what everybody thinks, that my dog Max is my baby. He's my child. I take care of him. I spend the money on him. He's my kid. I'm not just going to give him away.
Okay. What if it is kids?
Can they not come or can they come?
I mean, kids, I guess, I don't think many grandparents are going to say you can come, but leave the kids. I don't think that's going to happen.
They're going to say, let the grandkids come and you go find another place.
And there's some parents that would take that deal. Yeah. You give me the grandkids and you figure it out on your own.
Yeah, no doubt. And I've seen that too. Oh my gosh, my aunt has totally taken in her grandkids while the mom just gone and figured it out. Honest to God. She's like, I'm going to make sure that they're positive and they're in a happy environment and they're taking care of food on the table. I've given you all I can give. You go figure it out. They're babies. They're still figuring it out and they need my help. I've seen that firsthand and that's okay too. Whatever the situation works for your family dynamic, of course. But it's the resentment. I hope there's no resentment because it is so difficult to ask for help. When you feel like a failure, you feel like things aren't going your way, when you see everybody else thriving and hitting those benchmarks you thought at 39 you were going to be there and see too, and then you're moving into your parents' house, it's tough. But it's okay. It's okay to ask for help. And if you're lucky enough, your parents will help you and welcome you with open arms. And if not, it's just another learning curve in the process.
When my marriage ended, I did briefly move back in with my mom just to make closing dates line up and things like that. I spent about 2 months living with my mom.
How was that?
It was kind of amazing in a way.
Really?
Yeah. I think you appreciate your parents a little bit differently when you're an adult and you have gone through the struggles that they're going through and went through the entire time they were raising you.
Yeah.
I think you have a different understanding and appreciation of the struggles that our parents go through. So in that sense, it was amazing. It was a little weird to have my mom do my laundry again. And I'm like, Mom, don't touch the laundry. I can do my own laundry. But she wanted to mom again.
Exactly. That's the tough part.
And I think it was kind of nice for her on some level too. But I also made it very clear, and it was understood between the two of us, this is a very temporary thing. Mm-hmm. This is not going to be long term. Let's just enjoy this parenting and kidding again for a couple of months, but it's only going to be a couple of months. And I think when we had that goal that I'll be out in 60 days, but let's have some fun now.
Yeah.
I think it makes it a little bit easier. And we did have the conversation about money and bills and things like that because there is a cost to me being there.
Yes.
So I think that clear communication is good. Setting a timeline is essential. A time to get out or a time to buy X.
Yep.
I expect to be in this situation or have this much saved or whatever. And if I can't find my dream scenario, the house I want to buy or whatever, then I'll settle. But either way, my goal is to be out by this date.
I like that you approached it in that way. Approach it as if they're your landlords. I know that they are your parents, but look at them as people, as humans, and who too are trying to make ends meet. And they too want to see you succeed.
Which is the best thing about parents, right?
Like, yeah.
It's amazing because parents just have that parental instinct where there's really nobody else in the world that wants you to do better than them.
It's true.
Except for your parents.
Oh, it's the best. Like so many times living out east and struggling and me one income and I call and you're open as you get older. You share a lot more with your family and the dynamics of life. My parents are like, quit, move home. No, I can't quit, move home. It's always that. And now my dad wants to do my laundry and I'm like, Dad, stop. But they want to parent. And even if you live in the house and your ships in the night sailing by each other, don't see each other, they still can say, oh, Scott's at home with me again. It's like this pride thing for them. And I totally get it. So
in a lot of ways, it's reminiscent for them. Like you may be older, but you're still their kid.
Yeah.
And it can be a great experience. And I know there's some people who don't like being in the situation they're in. They didn't ask for it, but they ended up in it. And you make the best of it.
Can I tell you, this is so accurate. My cousin Michelle, they're renovating their home. It's like a big anniversary gift. Anyways, they have to move in with her parents, my aunt and uncle. And she's like, 2 months, Anna, 2 months. I just got to brave it out for 2 months. So they have a different dynamic of a relationship than I have with my parents. And she's like already counting down the days until she can get out.
Wow.
Do you know what I mean? And so I want to be clear that every relationship is different, but she is still thankful that she has a space she can call home for 2 months in the meantime.
What's your goal? Are you trying to get out, or are you planning to stay there? You have a different scenario in that the house is divided into two.
Yes.
You have the upstairs, they have the downstairs. You've got a separate entrance. You
Yes.
don't ask their permission for anything.
God, imagine, no, yeah.
You do contribute to the bills, so
Yeah.
in a way you're actually helping them.
I do, yeah.
Would you leave, or do you think you're there forever?
If I met somebody, I would, we got a place together, that would be cool. But the goal is, full disclosure, my parents are going to live with me. As long as I can, I will take care of my parents. I don't know if it's like a European thing. I mean, I handle things so much. I go to all their appointments. So I would like to actually get a big home. Not too big, because I don't want to clean it all, but like a decent sized home where my parents have their own space and they're there and they can age out beautifully. When I have kids, they can have that relationship with their kids. And I know that they're okay. I don't want to see them struggle. That's, my parents came to Canada to give us a better life and more opportunities, and I'm not going to waste it. And I want them to have the last years of their life comfortable. I want them to enjoy life. That is my goal. I'm not there yet, but my plan is to get there.
I think that that's a good reminder for everybody, is that if you are a boomeranger, if you have gone out and then come back, you are on deck. Because as much as it's the parents' job to prepare us to fly the nest and be self-sufficient and live on our own, the time's going to come when your parents just need your help, and you got to step up. You can't leave your parents you can't just check them into a home and hope that the check's clear.
Yeah, and it happens, and people do that, and that's your relationship, but I don't want to do that, and I want them to enjoy the remaining years of their life, and I want them to be happy and, breathe, because you're a parent, Scott, it's tough. It's hard to raise kids. You're always wondering and worrying about them, and you just want the best outcome, so yeah.
Couldn't agree more. And a great chat.
Oh, thanks for having me. I loved it. I got passionate. People.
I know you did, and I love it. I love it. Tomorrow, listener DMs.
Ooh, fun. Oh, I'm excited. I'm excited to see what people have to say.
I like that for listener DMs, some people are sending them directly to Anna.
I know,
if they don't want me to see it in advance, they're sending them directly to Anna.
Yeah, yesterday I got one, and it was like, yes, Anna, I agree with you about the banana hammock. I was like, girl, preach. So they send that directly to me because you didn't have a problem with it.
I think that you girls are so hypocritical. Criticizing guys for wearing a Speedo when some of you girls are out there wearing basically a napkin.
Let me tell you, I'm judging the napkin girl, and I'm also judging the peanut that is showing up in your banana hammock, okay? I don't want to see that in my face, and I don't want to see hers in my face either. Her camel toe or yours.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
On that note.
Anna, thanks a lot.
Thanks, Scott.
Yesterday was the Prime Minister's Day at the NATO summit. It was wrapping up, and all the leaders had to go and do a news conference. Our Prime Minister did one as well. And I'm going to play a little bit of this for you because it is a shift. This is something different that we're not used to here in Canada. We haven't heard a Prime Minister in a very long time say that we're going to overspend on the armed forces. We haven't had a Prime Minister come out in a long time and say, we're going to double down on military spending. Yesterday, though, we didn't just have a Prime Minister that said we're going to spend more on the military. He went all in on military spending. And whether it's because Donald Trump was standing there saying, do it, do it, do it, or it was because this is just the way he feels we will fit into Europe, Mark Carney made a big announcement. Listen to this.
This NATO summit is similarly taking place at a transformational moment for Canada, for the allies of NATO. The international rules-based system on which the alliance has relied upon is under unprecedented pressure. And the threats that are facing individual member states are evolving. They differ both in their form and severity. And at the same time, Canada's own relationship with NATO is appropriately evolving. Put it in a bit of context, for over a century, Canada has been a net exporter of security to Europe. And now, with those evolving threats worldwide, the threats to our own sovereignty are becoming more acute. With increasingly open Arctic waters and rapid advances in cyber, in AI, and quantum, with advanced missile capacities, we can no longer rely on our geography to protect us. As the global landscape.
Okay, I mean, that's a shot at the Americans. What Carney is saying without saying it here is he thinks that we're in some imminent threat, basically a war, and he doesn't think the Americans will defend us. Do you think that's true? First off, I don't see any threat whatsoever. None. If Russia or China wants to take the Arctic, they're going to have to go through America. We're in no shape to defend it, but the Americans will move heaven and earth to defend the Arctic, the Canadian Arctic, simply because they don't want China or Russia to have it. Do you feel any, like even an ounce of fear in you that missiles are going to come over the poles and bomb Toronto or bomb Winnipeg or bomb Calgary or bomb BC, Vancouver? I don't feel that threat at all. I'm glad we're spending money on our military, but this is a hell of a lot of money to spend, and I'm really not sure that the threat is as real as the Prime Minister is alluding to here. I'm also very conscious of the fact, though, that it's in his best interest to continue this facade that we're basically at war with America. We're not. Nothing could be further from the truth. We actually have a really great relationship with America. We're not going to get a deal done, just so you know. The tariffs are going to stay until we get a deal done, and there's no desire to get a deal done right now. The Prime Minister will not do a deal with Donald Trump until after he has locked us in with Europe. He wants us to be a European country. You've probably heard me talking about that this week, and that's part of the reason that it's going to seem like we're at odds with the Americans. We just can't agree on anything. I think that's probably because we don't want a deal, and I think everybody can acknowledge that. Carney is not interested in a deal with America, even though it could make us very, very prosperous. Doug Ford, the Premier of Ontario, talks a lot about the AmCan Fortress. Think of how powerful we would be if we were united. That's what he's pushing for. Carney doesn't want that because if we get that, he can't have this deal with Europe that he really wants. And what does the European deal come with? It comes with a lot of social contract. The Europeans are on a different plane. They want carbon taxes. They want money spent on DEI. They want a lot of the quote unquote woke issues addressed, whereas the Americans are really more about the money and the prosperity. That's the way I see this anyway. And you're most welcome for listener DMs to weigh in and tell me what you think. That's the way I see this going. Here's a little bit more of the Prime Minister speaking yesterday after the NATO summit.
Escape shifts, the collective security created by the alliance remains the strongest and the most effective way of protecting Canadian sovereignty and protecting the security of Canadians. So together with our allies, we must ensure that NATO remains strong, unified, and ready to confront the threats not just of today, but of tomorrow. And so in this pursuit, Canada is helping to ensure that the alliance and the peace that it can help protect prevail. In order to do so, we must invest in our strength, because Canada's leadership must be defined not just by the strength of our values, but by the value of our strength. And that's why earlier this month, Minister of Defense, Minister of Foreign Affairs, the Chief of the Defense Staff, and I unveiled Canada's plan to rebuild, rearm, and reinvest in the Canadian Armed Forces to protect, first and foremost, Canadians, to protect our interests, and also to help protect our allies. In doing so, we are reaching NATO's 2% target this year. We've arrived at this summit looking forward with a plan to help lead with new investments to build our strength. This morning, Canada, or just now, I guess it went into the afternoon, Canada and our allies agreed to a new defense investment pledge, which secures Canada's strategic and security goals. As part of that, Canada has already beginning working towards a target of 3.5% of GDP by 2035. By expanding our plan to invest in the Canadian Armed Forces, to modernize our military equipment and technology, to help build up our own defense and security industries, as well as to diversify our defense partnerships. We're also working to ensure that we are spending 1.5% of our GDP in defense and security-related infrastructure. So that means ports, airports, infrastructure to support the development and exportation of critical minerals, telecommunications, and emergency preparedness systems.
Okay, so I mean, it's an accounting trick. We're going to spend money domestically, but count it as military spending, and we'll justify that by saying, well, we need airports for the planes to take off from. Well, we need telecommunications so we can communicate with the troops in the field. It's an accounting trick, but it's not necessarily against the rules. It's just a trick. Okay, what the Prime Minister said there, though, and if you've been following along, he said very much or very often about getting a deal done with the Americans, that it would be a deal for the economy and for security. Well, he just said Canada has entered into an agreement for security here with NATO. So does that mean we're not trying to work with the Americans anymore? Because that's kind of the way that seems to me. And I find that disappointing. I think that if we're going to align ourselves with anybody, it should probably be with our closest neighbor and friend and the biggest military in the world. I really don't know why the Americans need NATO. Russia doesn't have a military alliance. China doesn't have a military alliance. India doesn't have a military alliance. Why does America need one? Now, smaller countries like the UK, France, Germany, Belgium, Sweden, Canada, yeah, maybe we do, because we're all smaller countries. The bigger ones, they don't need it. I don't really know why the Americans need to be involved in NATO, but they do seem to have a lot of sway within NATO. Let's go to one or two of the questions here that was asked of the Prime Minister after this announcement.
Hi, it's Steve Chase for the Globe and Mail. I want to ask you to what extent you have social license, to what extent you think you have public support for what defense experts are saying would be the largest increase in defense spending since the Second World War. We're talking 7% increases a year to reach that $50 billion number. It's going to crowd out other investments. It's going to crowd out requests for healthcare transfer increases. So to what extent do you think you have public support for this?
Well, thanks for the question, Steve. Let me answer this in two ways. The first is to provide some context to the overall 5% number. 1.5% of that 5% is what's called a defense industrial pledge. And as I described very briefly in my remarks, it's much more detail in the public documents, and we can go into more detail. In fact, the Minister of National Defense can go into an exhaustive detail here. But that the industrial element of that, much of this we are already doing. This is about building the resilience. What do we do to build the resilience of the country? How much are we spending on our ports, on our transportation infrastructure? How much are we spending in order to develop our critical minerals? What do we do to make sure we have a resilient telecommunications system? These are things that actually we, as government, both federal and provincial governments, these are responsibilities we have today to Canadians and responsibilities that, by and large, we are fulfilling. Now we're going to do a more proper accounting of that and a more strategic set of investments in that. So yes, we'll find gaps. We'll be transparent about that. We'll make up those gaps. So the overall context of the net increase in defense spending is much less than the headline from 2 to 5. First point. Very important point. But we have to show that, and we have to be deliberate and strategic about it, and we will. The second thing is what happens in terms of the, I'll call it the 2 to the 3.5, that number. We absolutely need to establish the political and social, to use the social license, the public support for that. It needs to be, as I indicated in my remarks, including my remarks in that room. First and foremost, we are protecting Canadians. We are protecting Canadians against new threats. I wish we didn't have to, but we do have to, and it is our core responsibility as government. And those threats, we see them, the evolving threat environment, most clearly in the Arctic, but it's also through the Arctic into Canada. And so we're taking our greater responsibilities around that. We have to be clear about what we're doing in order to achieve it. Last point. We're focused on the outcome, the result, protecting Canadians. We're driven by that, not by, with all due respect, sitting in the NATO building, by NATO accountants. And that's part of what's relevant for this 2029 review. We're going to focus on those new threats. We're going to take more of it directly in our responsibility, because they are our responsibility. They're threats on our soil, in our marine areas. And where possible, we're going to work with our partners. But we're also going to assess how well we've done, first and foremost to Canadians, whom we serve, but also to our partners, there'll be a review and there'll be an adjustment at that point.
Okay, I'm going to leave it there for a second. The Prime Minister saying it doesn't really matter if he has any permission from the Canadian people or a social license to do it. Yeah, we have to spend this money because he needs to protect Canadians. From who? Who's attacking us? Nobody's attacking us. This is a strategy that governments do. They want to make you think that you're in danger and that only they can protect you, and they're going to do whatever they have to do to protect us, and we all get all uppity because we're scared that we're at a threat, and we just say, okay, go ahead and do whatever you have to do. I am not really willing to do that with this government because I don't see a threat at all. None. I don't think the Americans would ever just let us get attacked, even if there were a threat. I think this is a waste of money when we've got way too many issues at home. Way too many. Canada can contribute to NATO in many, many, many ways. I don't think we need to spend $150 billion a year when we're in as much debt as we're in and when we have as many domestic issues as we do. That's the way I see it. When we've got people lined up at food banks, when we've got a year waiting list for surgeries, when we've got a healthcare system that's crumbling, basically, schools that can't afford air conditioners, when we've got rampant crime in our streets and all the other issues that we're dealing with, I don't want to hear from him. We got to spend $150 billion a year, and don't ask where it's going or what it's for. It's to protect you. I mean, I guess, because he said we have to look at the results. Sure, in 10 years, he'll probably be able to look back and say, we did our job. Nobody attacked us. But I mean, the other side of that is nobody's going to attack us anyway. They're just not. There is no threat. There was never a threat of annexation from America. We know that now. We know that Carney and Trump have a great relationship. They joke about it. There was never a threat, and we bought into it. That's why Carney is standing there instead of Pierre Poilievre. We bought what he was selling. To continue selling it, though, so that he can go out and spend $150 billion a year on the military. I fully support our military, and I think that that's an outrageous amount of money, personally, when we've got this many issues at home and we're in as much debt as we're in. Let's hear the follow-up on that question, and then we'll wrap it up.
Follow-up question is more of a reflection on the trip and what you hope to accomplish overall here. You said the other day that Canada is the most European of the non-European countries. You came here to sign a security and defense partnership. Serious question. Is there any way, or have you given any thought to possibly trying to chart a path to joining the European Union? Obviously, it's a geographical series of countries, but they also share a philosophy about how to arrange society and how to treat individuals, and they share a lot of values with us. So, is that door completely closed to us, or is there anything like being an observer or something that we can get to? Because I have to say that question comes up a lot in talking to Canadians these days.
Interesting. I haven't heard it expressed to me by Canadians or many Canadians. So the short answer is no. That's not the intent. That's not the pathway we're on. But much of what you said in your question, I would subscribe to, which is that most European and non-European nations. That's not necessarily a comment about the historical makeup of the country, but it's the relative value set, the value on liberty, the value on democracy, the importance of solidarity. We have similar social welfare systems, the importance we put on sustainability, our ability to mutualize, in other words, to work with others.
We have all those things in common with the Americans, too. It's just different political ideology. Mark Carney likes carbon taxes. Mark Carney is very much into the woke, quote unquote, issues. And Europe is, too, because they've got a very left-wing set of government there. There is a huge, there's a lot of different governments in Europe, and most of them tend to lean left, and so does Carney. When he was an executive at the World Economic Forum, I mean, he leaned into that. He made a lot of money from that. It's not entirely surprising that he wants to make us closer to Europe, a security and economic partnership with Europe. A week ago, he told us he was working on that with the Americans, and now that American one is just not going to happen, not until after he's locked us into Europe. That's just reality. You heard him. You heard him right there. I'm a little worried about this, to be perfectly honest with you. I'm kind of concerned. I don't know when Canadians voted for this. And even if the thought of it is appealing to you to be more aligned with Europe and get away from America, I would ask you, why do you think that? It's not practical in any way. The vast majority of our trade gets done with America. Could we shift more of it to Europe? Sure. But to stick our finger up at the Americans and say, bye, we don't need you, that's not the right approach. It's really not. Let's hear one more from Prime Minister Carney, actually, because I still haven't heard him talk about domestic issues. He's over there signing agreements and making all kinds of promises to the Europeans, but he still hasn't come to Canadians and said that this is what we're going to do. This is the new direction of the country.
Mr. Carney, Mackenzie Gray with Global News. Previously, you've spoken about the idea that Canadians will need to make sacrifices to pay for defense spending. Can you outline what sacrifices you're expecting Canadians to make?
Well, I think right now we're in the... Right now, the people who've been making sacrifices have been the men and women of the Canadian Armed Forces because they have not been paid to reflect what we are asking them to do. They haven't been operating with the right equipment in many cases. Many cases, their equipment hasn't been working. So the first sacrifices have been there, and we're making up for that and level setting that, and that's an important part of just what we're doing this year in terms of the increase in defense. The second thing I'd say is that the way we're looking at this, and you'll hear more about this in the coming months, that the investments we're making in defense and security, broader security, given the new threats that Canada faces, I think those, we're not at a trade-off. We're not at sacrifices in order to do those. These will be net additive. In other words, more of this will happen in Canada. More of it will help build our economy at the same time as it improves our defense, and we'll get the benefits. The question is, as we move towards later in this decade, and depending on how the threat environment evolves globally, if we are moving to the higher and higher levels of defense spending because that's necessary, then we will have to make considerations about what less the federal government can do in certain cases and how we're going to pay for it. Those trade-offs, I'm going to give you false precision around this, but those trade-offs happen towards the end of the decade into the next decade.
Okay, I mean, that's 4 years is the end of the decade. We're going to have to make sacrifices. We are. There's going to be things that people really enjoy having right now that are going to get taken away. And it won't be the federal government saying, we're going to cancel the dental care program. It'll be the federal government telling the provinces they have to run it. And they'll be the bad guys when they say, yeah, we just can't afford to do this. There's only so much money. And it doesn't seem like anyone in Ottawa understands that. It doesn't seem like they get it. We have to live within our means. $150 billion a year on defense is not within our means. Not unless we're going to cut a bunch of other stuff. We're going to have to make sacrifices if we're going to go down this road. But again, I would ask you, where's the threat? Who's coming to attack us? Nobody is. We're throwing away money here, friends. I really want a well-stocked and well-funded military. I want them to have everything they need, but I want them to have a role. Maybe Canada's going to be the drone country. Maybe we're going to be the ones where don't mess with us because we got a lot of drones. We can build those drones in Canada. We can use Canadian technology. We can use Canadian workers, Canadian parts, Canadian minerals, Canadian everything. And then we're just a country not to be messed with because we're the drone country. Unfortunately, our military is so far behind, it's going to take us years to get to a point where we have a really, truly effective fighting force. There's so many things I could cover. There's so much more of that news conference I wish I could play, but I'm already way over time here today. Friends, thank you for listening. Tomorrow, it's a listener DMs episode. If you want to say something, whatever you want, whatever's on your mind. How do you feel about the direction I've gone in this week? Are you upset about that? Do you like me pointing out some of the things about Mark Carney, or do you just want to forget about politics and just assume that he's doing a good job and worry about other things? I'd love to hear what your mindset is, where you're coming from right now. Weigh in on anything you want. Ask a question, make a comment. You do it at Scott Fox On Air. Instagram is the best way to find me, but there are other ways, and you can figure those out too. Have yourselves a great day, everyone. I will catch you right back here tomorrow on Scott Fox After 9.